What's up, guys? It's Benny. This has been a practice in how to not handle a scandal inside of the Trump administration with the Epstein files, which were on Pam Bondi's desk and ready to be released, which were so lurid and so evil that we could barely even tolerate them. We were told that many, many times. And then they were promised they were going to be all released. Get ready, truckloads of evidence. And then they didn't exist. And then they were written by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. And those have been the stories. And what was a simple practice in transparency for the federal government to prove that we're not paying taxes to pederasts has suddenly smoldered into a radioactive toxic sludge of the current moment. And that current moment includes potentially members of the Trump administration quitting in defiance of the lack of transparency, like Dan Bongino here, and more importantly, a larger spiraling scandal. And I hate that it has gotten to the level of scandal, but that's what I believe, because there are so many people in the base that are upset. And listen, if you don't have a base, then where's your political power come from? I mean, the number one rule that you have to have is I'm not going to let you hurt me with my base, right? And that's the rule that Trump has to enforce here. If President Trump, somebody who has said many times that he wants to release the full Epstein list, and somebody whose administration promised to do it over and over again. Now, the base is going to hear those promises, and they're going to say, we really care about that. We don't want to protect predators. And so thank you for doing that. That's an act of faith. When you yank that away, right, when you pull the football, then it is the opposite of that. And then that hurts you with the base. And you need the base to win the midterms. You need the base to win 2028. You need the base to continue on in power and to make this a durable movement. And so you cannot hurt yourself with the base. However, there is an out that is happening right now. In an article that stunned me to my very core, ladies and gentlemen, this shocking exclusive from the Daily Mail: Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, will reveal the truth about the pedophile client list, says insiders. Why are Republicans blocking her? My goodness, what is this? Ghislaine Maxwell is willing to speak in front of Congress about the Epstein files, sources tell the Daily Mail. Maxwell, 63, is the only person behind bars, serving 20 years on child sex trafficking charges, despite the fact that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly controlled the web of underage girls. Ghislaine Maxwell is a proxy for Jeffrey Epstein. She's serving time for his crimes. I'm not saying she's innocent at all. What I'm saying is that Jeffrey Epstein was clearly the mark here, and when he killed himself in prison, then they moved those charges effectively to Ghislaine Maxwell. It's also why so much of the evidence is on lockdown. You must understand, the reason the evidence is on lockdown is that Ghislaine Maxwell is appealing right now, and then that evidence is what's called under seal. I'm not saying that's a great excuse. I'm saying that the federal government needs to explain that to all of us, and then the DOJ needs to push for the release of that evidence, but that's a matter of fact. That's where so much of the evidence actually is. It's under seal in the Southern District of New York, under the control of the Justice Department, litigation pending, right? Additionally, Epstein's victims allegedly were passed around as sex toys to his wealthy friends and billionaire business associates who regularly visited his homes, including his private island. Now, a source says, despite the rumors, Ghislaine has never offered any kind of plea deal. She would be more than happy to sit in front of Congress and tell her story. No one from the government has ever asked her to share what she knows. She remains the only person who was jailed in connection to Epstein that would welcome the chance for America to tell the truth. What is the truth? And it remains to be seen. Maxwell was convicted in 2022 for a role in the scheme to sexually exploit and abuse multiple girls, Epstein, over the course of decades. Obviously, she has a very sketchy background as well. Her father was a spy and was Mossad and was connected to British intelligence and a ton of other intelligence agencies. Ghislaine Maxwell sort of is the key holder and the last piece of physical evidence. So you saw that they obviously had Virginia Roberts killed. That's what I believe. She was a piece of living evidence, to all of these crimes. Maxwell argues that she should have been protected from prosecution as part of a non-prosecution agreement made by Epstein, her former lover and boss, in 2007, when he agreed to plead guilty to 2 minor charges for prostitution and a sweetheart deal. Now, controversy continues to rage over the Department of Justice statement that there was no Epstein client list and the release of the videos in New York's Metropolitan Correctional Center, which the DOJ says proves he committed suicide. It proves absolutely nothing, by the way. If anything, it proves the opposite. Critics have pointed to the fact that there's a critical missing minute. There's also a bunch of people going in and out. You also can't see Jeffrey Epstein's cell block, much less his door. The entire thing is absurd, right? The entire release is absurd. The scandal alleges a cover-up that prompted a rebellion against President Trump's loyal MAGA base, and that's a real problem. Some believe Attorney General Pam Bondi should be fired, including Dan Bongino, who's threatened to quit. On Saturday night, President Trump posted a rebuttal saying, "For years, Epstein, over and over again, why are we not giving publicity? Why are we not giving publicity to the files written by Obama, crooked Hillary, Comey, Brennan, and the losers of the Biden administration?" The Epstein cover-up was also the main topic of conversation among this weekend's Student Action Conference, including myself. Sharon Allen, an attendee, told NBC News, "It's not about Pam Bondi to me. It's about, look, Trump elected, you were elected, and you're supposed to be different. So prove to us that you're different by exposing the predators," right? A source close to Maxwell told the Daily Mail that the former girlfriend of Epstein, who continues to protest her innocence, would welcome the chance to sit in front of Congress and tell the story. All she would have to do is get subpoenaed. She could appear digitally, right, from the courthouse. This happens regularly from inside of the jail. She could appear digitally. Maybe they could send her with a guard. The source said congressional hearings have been held from everything from JFK's assassination to the Epstein files. Ghislaine Maxwell would be willing to speak to Congress to tell her story. Maxwell is also fighting to have her appeal heard at the Supreme Court. July 14th, lawmakers in the U.S. government would submit their responses in plea to the Supreme Court to take up her case. President Trump's former first buddy, Elon Musk, sensationally claimed the cover-up is because of President Trump. The source close to Maxwell says it's a false flag. Interesting. President Trump was photographed with Epstein several times. They ran in the same circles, but Trump was one of the first to break contact with Epstein over Epstein's mistreatment of women. Okay. There are no big shocks about President Trump and the Epstein files, but there are a lot of powerful men involved and a lot of money, and they got to follow the money. The Department of Justice also said that no one else is likely to be prosecuted in relation to the Epstein case, including Prince Andrew. And then Donald Trump got invited to England literally this morning. Donald Trump's going to make a state visit to England this morning. Got it. Prince Andrew has consistently and vehemently denied all the actions against him. Miss Guffrey committed suicide this last year. This is Virginia Roberts. Okay, got it. There's photos of Ghislaine Maxwell and Virginia Roberts and Prince Andrew. She says that Ghislaine Maxwell trafficked her to Prince Andrew. So why wouldn't Ghislaine Maxwell, why wouldn't you call her in to testify? This is going to be a great test for Republicans in Congress, and also a good out for the Trump administration. This is exactly how you get rid of something like this. If you bring in Ghislaine Maxwell, you show transparency. You should totally do this. We should totally do this. This is a great idea. Here's Ghislaine Maxwell. She's spoken very, very little, obviously, but here's Ghislaine Maxwell in a recorded line from her prison saying what she thinks about Epstein. And here's Tim Burchett, ladies and gentlemen, member of Congress, saying why he thinks the Congress won't do this. Here we go.
No, he didn't. I don't believe he did. I believe that he was murdered. Well, I was shocked. And I wondered how it had happened. Because as far as I was concerned, I was sure he was going to appeal. And I was sure that he was covered under the non-prosecution agreement.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the indictment. So I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even one of the co-conspirators.
And too many of my colleagues, I'm afraid, are compromised in this area for whatever reason. Somebody just whispered in their ear, said, "Hey, you don't want something to come out on something else. You better keep your mouth shut on this." And that's exactly what they've done. And it continues to go, whether it's the honeypot that the Russians used to use or something worse. I don't know, but it's clearly, you see that up and down the line. You see good conservatives vote for liberal policies.
So you're saying that right now, currently ongoing in our Congress, there are members of Congress who have been compromised by either special interests or the intelligence community to not give the American public information on Jeffrey Epstein?
I believe so. 100%. 100%. I would tell you one quick thing. I know it's a little different, but I've been involved in the UFO UAP issue, and it's, like I said, I'm not going to bring out little green men and a flying saucer, but it's about transparency. I had an amendment on the FAA reauthorization bill that said if an American pilot sees a UAP, an anomaly or something, and they make a report to the FAA, that report has to be made available to Congress. I was told by the whip, I said, "What happened to my amendment?" And he said, "It was killed by the intelligence community." And I said, "You mean the intelligence committee?" And he said, "No, the intelligence community." It was not even brought up. And these are unelected bureaucrats that have that much control. And so, yeah, we got to start electing people with guts in both parties. This pandering stuff that's going on now, it's just a distraction.